I say there's a 2 in 3 chance that we win control of the House again. But there's a 1 in 3 chance that we could lose. And I'm being myself, frank. We've got a big challenge, and we've got work to do.
Joining us now is Jonathan Capehart, a Washington Post opinion writer and an MSNBC analyst. Jonathan, I've never heard a speaker say anything other than, of course we're going to keep the majority. We're going to pick up seats. They always say that.
They always say that. But, you know, maybe John Boehner's being a little honest. He did say they have a 2/3 chance of holding the House. But this is going to be a tough election for the president. It's going to be a tough election for the speaker in terms of whether he's going to be able to hold on to the House. It's a lot tougher to hang on to, what is it, 87 seats or however many seats they picked up in 2010 than it is for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats to pick off enough for her to possibly become speaker again.
There are 33 House freshmen in districts that President Obama won, and I think that that's a statement designed to give him leverage inside the conference. We're going to hold control unless you guys do a bunch of stupid stuff.
He's not really. He's talking to his members and saying that.
100%.
Right? Yeah,
100%. And
we need a disciplined year here.
And the donor community. We can't make turnovers. We can't make fumbles. We can't alienate, you know, the population of the country on all these extreme issues. Absolutely.
The Democrats need to pick up 25 of those seats, and then they have control of the House. Jonathan, is the Republican House and their voting record, what they've already voted on, is that one of the most important Obama re-election campaign tools to marry Romney to all those votes in the House?
It's those votes, and it's the actions of the Republicans on Capitol Hill for the last 3 years that the president has to use as a weapon against Mitt Romney to say, look, I've tried, this is the president saying, I've tried to do all of these things, but Republicans on Capitol Hill, whether they were in the minority and certainly when they were in the majority, stopped me or tried to stop me every step of the way. Remember, the health care reform law, which may or may not be struck down as unconstitutional, but remember, that was where were the Republican votes on that? There weren't any.
The president was in Colorado tonight. Now, it's Obama versus Romney. We know that for the presidency. So here's the president in Colorado tonight, and let's listen to who he wants to talk about to his audience in Colorado.
This is from a Republican congresswoman. I didn't really understand this. I'm quoting her. She said, she said that she has very little tolerance for people who tell me they graduate with debt because there's no reason for that. She said students who rack up student loan debt are just sitting on their butts, having opportunity dumped in your lap. I can tell you, Michelle and I, we didn't take out loans because we were lazy.
And so, Steve, the question becomes, Mr. Romney, do you agree with Republican House member Virginia Fox that students who take loans are sitting on their butts?
I think he should be who?
I mean, that's the presidential candidate sticking the Republican House members onto the Republican presidential candidate.
Yeah, look, absolutely. They're an unpopular part, the most unpopular part, by polling of the most unpopular institution in the country. So, you know, it makes perfect political sense. And I think, you know, Mitt Romney has positioned himself, though, as an outsider in the campaign, apart from Washington, and he's going to need to maintain that space. And so I think you'll see him at every opportunity where he can put a little bit of distance between himself and the Republican Congress. You're going to see him do it.
Although, who was it just the other day? Was it Senator Rubio who said, Mitt Romney, he's the leader of the Republican Party? I mean, he's the leader of the Republican Party, especially after tonight.
He is the leader of the Republican Party. He's the titular head of the party for the nominee. And if he loses the election, he's the titular head of the party to agree for the next 4 years. So it's a balancing act. But, you know, he's not going to run as the captain of Team Washington. He's going to look out for his own political equities, and he's going to look for distance where he can get it in these races.
Well, let's listen to the president again, who's trying to make him the captain of Team Washington. Here he is at UNC Chapel Hill telling the students about the Republicans in Washington, their record on the issues that these students care about.
If these folks in Washington were serious about making college more affordable, they wouldn't have voted for a budget that could cut financial aid for tens of millions of college students by an average of more than $1,000. And they say, well, we got to bring down the deficit. Of course, this is the deficit they helped run up over the past decade, didn't pay for 2 wars, didn't pay for 2 massive tax cuts, and now this is the reason why you want students to pay more? They just voted to keep giving billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies to big oil companies that are raking in record profits. They just voted to let millionaires and billionaires keep paying lower tax rates than middle-class workers and their secretaries.
They just voted for all that. Now, answer that, Mr. Romney, who didn't vote for it, but you say you're in favor of it.
Right. You know, this student loan debate issue is something I wrote about when the payroll tax cut deal was finally done. Mm-hmm. I said, now that the Republicans have found their way out of the box that they've painted themselves in, they have one coming up in June on student loans. And what the president is doing, he is pitting the GOP once again against the middle class, against people for whom these student loans are vital. They're essential if these children are to go to college and keep climbing the rungs of the ladder to the American dream. So we'll soon see if what happened in December plays out again, particularly in June, with the president painting the GOP in a corner.
I want to hear one more thing that Speaker Boehner said about the re-election chances in the House, just because I find this so surprisingly frank. He's talking about the endangered members in his group, calling some of them orphans. Let's listen to this.
We've got 50 of our members in tough races, 89 freshmen running for their first re-election.
It's a lot.
And we have 32 districts that are in states where there's no presidential campaign going to be run, no big Senate race, and we call these orphan districts.
It's like listening to Charlie Cook doing this straight math thing, the guy who knows more about House elections than anybody else. Where is the we're going to win in all of that?
I defer to Steve on this. I am now fascinated.
Look, I think that this is an appeal for discipline, and basically to the conference, you guys need to do what I'm telling you to do.
But wait, these guys who are in the orphan districts, right, don't they know they're orphans? Do they have to be told on national television by the speaker, hey, you have a tricky district to win?
Well, look, I think this is a reflection, obviously. I mean, my interpretation of it is there's internal conversations that are going on, which is we're going to hold control unless we do. And they're worried about it. You have the Robert Draper book that's coming out. I think that points out a lot of the tensions that have played out over the last 2 years. It's going to be a great book. Like, I'm dying to read it. I can't wait to read it. But I think, like, when you read that book and you understand what's gone on there, you understand perfectly why he's saying that. That is a message to the Republican conference about being disciplined, about being focused, about being politically smart.
I just have never heard a speaker delivering his messages to the caucus on national television. I thought they had a room for that where they close the door.
And not just national television, Fox.
Yes.
Where, I mean, that's as close as you're going to get to an internal meeting as,
Exactly. Steve Schmidt and Jonathan Capehart, thank you both very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Sarge.
Good to see you.
Coming up, our friends at Funny or Die have a few procedures they'd like Rick Santorum to go through before he is allowed to finally terminate his campaign. Among other things, they would like to force him to look at a sonogram of his campaign before he ends it. And Sandra Fluke is with us again tonight in an exclusive interview, this time to respond to Rush Limbaugh's new vicious attack against her today. All it took to get Limbaugh attacking her again today was a very simple tweet that could only anger Rush Limbaugh.